This is Peter Paltchik. He won a bronze medal in judo at the Paris Olympics. Paltchik was also chosen as one of Israel's flag bearers for the opening ceremony, a special honor enjoyed by very few athletes. But he was also in focus at the Games for another reason. Before the Olympics, Paltchik posted a photo of shells destined for Gaza on social media, with the caption, "From me to you with pleasure." Written on one of the missiles was the word ippon, a judo term which signifies an immediate victory. The post was later deleted, and Israel's Judo Federation denied that Paltchik had signed any of the missiles himself. But critics of Israel's military campaign in Gaza accused him of glorifying the deaths of thousands of Palestinians. His moment of triumph on the podium was exactly what these people wanted to prevent. Before the Games started, they protested in host city Paris, calling for Israel to face similar sporting sanctions to those enforced on Russia.
Now, with the genocide in the Gaza Strip underway, it is business as usual. They are prepared to welcome the Israeli delegation.
Other Israeli athletes have also been criticized for supporting the offensive in Gaza. Boycotts of Israeli athletes have been going on almost since the country was established. But the skyrocketing death toll in Gaza has seen more calls for action than ever before. We'll break down the arguments for sanctions, look at the response from Israel and sporting bodies, and explore how all this could impact the next Football World Cup. Firstly, let's break down what Israel's critics are demanding. At the end of 2023, the Jordan Football Association released a statement demanding that the global sports community take action. Specifically, it called for the suspension of teams, clubs, players, and representatives from any sports tournaments or gatherings until Israel agrees to a ceasefire in Gaza. The statement said these demands were in line with the precedent set by sports federations and committees. In January 2024, a European political movement posted a petition online calling for Israel to be suspended by international sports bodies. The petition stated, following a swift response and an instant suspension of Russia, it is now difficult for them to justify turning a blind eye to the Israeli government's actions. Over 100,000 people have signed the petition. In February, 26 French lawmakers called on Israel to be sanctioned at the Paris Olympics, demanding Israel face the same restrictions as Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. And in a showdown at the annual FIFA Congress in May, Palestinian Football Association chief Jibril Rajoub called for a vote on banning Israel from world football.
I urge you to recall the images and sounds and consider the data depicting the immense devastation currently taking place in Palestine. I ask you to stand on the right side of history and vote now. The suffering of millions, including thousands of footballers, deserve as much, if not now, then when?
So, these calls for sanctions come down mainly to two things: the magnitude of the suffering in Gaza and the precedent set with Russia. In September, Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry reported that more than 40,000 people had been killed in Israel's offensive. The UN says about 1.7 million people, roughly 3/4 of the population, are displaced. The International Court of Justice is investigating allegations of genocide. The military campaign has, of course, also impacted sports in Gaza. More than 400 athletes have been killed, according to Palestinian organizations, and many more wounded, as Rajoub told DW.
في مئات جرحوا، يعني في كثير من اللاعبين بما فيهم في أبطال اللي كان ممكن يمثلونا في فرنسا، يا إما أصيبوا بالحرب، يا إما إنهم هم أو بالعدوان، يا إما إنه استشهدوا.
Footage released in December also showed Israeli forces using Gaza's Yarmouk football stadium as a detention center, with Palestinian prisoners rounded up and stripped to their underwear. The stadium has also been bombed.
إذا كان هم ملتزمين يتفضلوا الخروقات اللي عم بتصير من جيشهم ومن عدوانهم على الرياضيين وعلى المنشآت الرياضية، يتفضلوا يقولوا لنا شو رأيهم، شو موقفهم.
The devastation caused by Israel's military operations in Gaza is undeniably vast. Of course, this is only the latest phase of a decades-long conflict. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced from what is now Israel before and after the state was established in 1948. And Israel has occupied the remaining Palestinian territories since 1967, leading to a situation that UN investigators and the International Court of Justice have said amounts to apartheid. Israel rejects this characterization, though some Israelis, like academic Tamir Sorek, are critical of the government's policies.
Palestinians were provoked for many decades by dispossession of an entire people and by the subjugation of them to this oppressive racist regime.
أعتقد هاي المظاهر وهاي المواقف تحرم إسرائيل من المشاركة في هذا المحفل الإنساني الأخلاقي القيمي الإلهي. هذا موقفنا. من هون إحنا بنتمنى من إنه الحراك الشعبي والرسمي يحاصر إسرائيل.
The other central pillar of the argument for sanctioning Israel is the treatment of Russia. Within 4 days of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine beginning, football's global and European governing bodies, FIFA and UEFA, banned Russia from taking part in their competitions.
It means that there are clearly cases where FIFA decided that a country did something illegitimate and therefore it should be suspended.
Then in late 2023, the International Olympic Committee confirmed heavy restrictions for Russia at the Paris Olympics. Athletes who were members of the military or supporters of the campaign were banned from competing. Russia's flag, national anthem, and government officials were also barred from the event. Ultimately, Russia only sent 15 athletes to Paris, down from 335 in Tokyo.
Israel is committing horrific war crimes that far exceeds what Russia has been doing in Ukraine, in terms of the level of destruction, in terms of the level of death. Therefore, the approach of FIFA and the International Olympic Committee is certainly hypocritical.
Israel itself sees the Russia comparison completely differently. Its supporters say that while Russia's invasion of Ukraine was unprovoked, the same cannot be said about Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza. Even some who are critical of the Israeli government share this view, like Uzi Dan, a sports reporter with liberal outlet Haaretz.
So some people say, why Russia yes and Israel no? But it's exactly the other way around. Russia attacked Ukraine. We are the Ukraine in this story. We were attacked.
This brings us to a crucial part of the debate, the October 7th terror attack on Israel committed by Hamas. The group, which is classified as a terrorist organization by multiple entities, sent thousands of its fighters into Israeli territory, killing nearly 1,200 people. It was the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Hamas also took about 250 people hostage.
What happened on October 7th was probably the worst thing that happened to Israel at least 50 years, some people would say, since 1948 or even before. In the first days, everyone, including the sports world in Israel, were in total shock.
The head of Israel's Olympic Committee also referenced the attack when the comparison between Russia and Israel was put to her during the Paris Games. She told French TV, "This is really a disgrace, because the whole world knows that Hamas is a terror organization. To take the victim and turn it into a country that has to be banned, it is impossible to think about." For many Israelis, the attack was just the latest chapter in a long history of persecution.
It's about the sense that the Jews, again, are fighting for their lives. They said in Passover, we read a traditional text. It's something that was written 1,500 years ago. Every generation, someone wants to destroy us.
This leads us to another aspect of this debate. Many in Israel believe that calls to ban the country from international sports are motivated by a broader agenda to delegitimize the Jewish state. In some cases, these efforts are seen as crossing the line into anti-Semitism.
I don't like to say that the world is anti-Semitic. I don't think this is true. But it's either ignorance or, like Sherlock Holmes used to say, if all the possibilities are gone, the one that stands is the one that wins.
The president of Israel's Football Association also hinted at anti-Israeli sentiment at the FIFA Congress, following the Palestinian FA's call for a vote on suspending Israel from football.
A proposal that based on motives and ambition that have nothing to do with the spirit of sports or the FIFA value of separating sports from politics. I am holding myself back and will not speak about the true motives out of respect for this institution. Football has successfully broke down so many walls, and yet there are those who insist using to punish, to split, to taint with political motives and decrease hatred.
Historical context is another thing for sporting bodies to consider. Since the State of Israel was established in 1948, it has faced consistent sporting boycotts.
We are geographically in Asia, of course, but we were expelled from Asia football in the 70s because of an Arab and Muslim boycott after 1973 war.
Israel was one of the founding members of the Asian Football Confederation in 1954, before being kicked out in 1974. During that time, Israel almost qualified for the 1958 World Cup without playing a game due to boycotts. The country has been a full member of European body UEFA since 1994. There have been multiple boycotts in a range of sports, including at the Olympic Games. At the Tokyo Olympics in 2021, Israeli judoka Toar Butbul made it through 2 rounds without a fight when his opponents either withdrew or failed to show up, allegedly to avoid facing an Israeli. At the Paris Games, Butbul again received a bye when Algeria's Messaoud Driss exceeded the weight limit ahead of their bout. Israel accused him of doing so deliberately.
The policy of Israel was always to participate in any sport, against any country, against any athlete. It can be in Iran, Syria, whatever. We always were willing to play anyone. States and countries and people did not play us.
Finally, there's the legacy of Munich 1972, when 11 Israeli athletes and coaches were taken hostage and eventually killed by the Palestinian militant group Black September. The Munich massacre is unparalleled as the only time in modern Olympics history that competitors have been murdered at the Games. Sanctioning the country whose athletes were the victims of this terror attack would obviously be politically difficult for the IOC. And there are other reasons sporting bodies have not supported a ban. The IOC said the two situations cannot be compared and ruled out sanctioning Israel. President Thomas Bach went so far as to say that it was out of the question. Above all, the IOC has made the distinction that Russia broke the Olympic truce as the invasion began just 4 days after the end of the 2022 Winter Olympics. This does not apply to Israel, with the conflict beginning well outside of the Olympic window. To the wider world, that may seem like a minor detail compared to the devastation in Gaza, especially as the military operation continued throughout the Paris Games. FIFA, meanwhile, declined the Palestinian FA's demand for a vote on banning Israel. President Gianni Infantino did say football's governing body would take legal advice on whether Israel had broken its statutes on human rights. But since then, FIFA has delayed a ruling twice, and Infantino has implied he would prefer to avoid a suspension.
We are a football organization, and football is here to unite, not to divide. I do not want to divide this Congress. I do not want to divide FIFA. I do not want to divide our 211 member countries.
Bodies like FIFA and the IOC are focused on maintaining their positions of power in global sports. That means keeping as many countries as possible in the fold and avoiding mass boycotts. The Palestinian cause has major support in the Arab world and among other Muslim nations. If these countries collectively demanded Israel be banned, it would pose a genuine risk of splintering for international sporting bodies. That kind of large-scale action is likely the only chance Israel's critics have of forcing the issue.
I'm not optimistic that we will see the same level of enthusiasm to not to play against Israel as we saw in Russia, but I wouldn't rule out that we can gain the necessary critical mass of opposition in order to affect our international institutions.
So, what could trigger that kind of united front? The answer may come in the form of the main host nation of the next Football World Cup. The majority of 2026 World Cup games will take place in the USA. A group of countries threatening to pull out of an event being hosted by Israel's key backer would create a crisis for FIFA.
You cannot avoid being political. The question is, which side of politics you would like to take? FIFA should decide whether they are in the side of apartheid and genocide or in the side which is against it. If, and there is a big if here, and Israel will qualify to the next World Cup, it will certainly be the focus of a very intense campaign for suspending Israel.
To what extent is Israel's military action justified by the horrors of October 7th? To what extent were those crimes related to Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories over the past decades? These are not really questions for the sporting world to answer. But as diplomats struggle to find a resolution to the conflict, the rest of the world has been left to deal with its impact. Whether sporting bodies like it or not, they may be forced to pick a side, or face the prospect of rebellion.